We're back again. Now we'll be talking about the Aztec Empire. The Aztec Empire was established in 900 BC and ended in 1697 AD. They had a militaristic society which made them the dominant civilization at the time. They were made up of city-states with their capital being Tenochtitlan. They had four social classes. From highest to lowest, they were the noble class, which included the emperor, military leaders, judges, and high-ranking priests. These individuals were recognizable by the fancy clothes and jewelry they wore. The second class, included in this class were the farmers, merchants, artisans, and low-ranking priests. They usually lived in neighborhoods called kalpuli. They also made food for the nobles. Next were the serfs. The serfs were not slaves but did work on land for the nobles. And lastly were the slaves. Slaves were a big part of the Aztec society. They consisted of criminals and prisoners of war. They were housed and fed by their masters. Now we'll go back to Kennedy.
Thanks, Danny. The Aztec land was held by local districts, their temples, or their cities. They loved to have gardens on top of their roofs. Instead of the land being held by one sole owner, they had collective rights to it. The way this worked was the owner would come and work on the land, and if 2 years passed and it didn't work on the land, they were admonished. If 3 years passed and it didn't work on the land, it was given back to the kaplan. The same thing would happen if the family died out. Aztec art came from the civilization of Toltec. They were very good at craftsmanship. Many of their skills were featherworking, which is believed to come from the Aztec civilization, and goldsmithing, jewelry making, and cutting gemstones. Many of the artisans didn't come from the Aztec civilization. Artisans were referred to as painted men because when they died, they would paint their bodies in many different colors. Now to Jillian.
Thanks, Kennedy. The empire was the Itzcoatl and the Montezuma. The Montezuma was the successor over the Itzcoatl. After taking over the last empire, the Montezuma had power over 500 small states. The Aztecs liked to trade almost anything. They relied mainly on farming crops when trading. Their main crop was corn. Other crops they farmed were beans, squash, tobacco, avocados, hemp, and peppers. The farmers would not only feed themselves, but the whole city. There was also an Aztec market that sold things like medicine, jewelry, raw materials, and wood. Men had jobs like as priests, warriors, craftsmen, farming, and fighters. Females would take care of the Aztec household, sewing clothing for both the family and for selling them, taught how to bring up children and how to take care of them, taught to make jewelry, and to take part in cooking. They had no money currency and were a primitive economy. Back to you, Sydney.
Thank you, Jillian. The Aztecs wanted to keep the nature in balance. The Aztecs' human sacrifices were connected with religious festivals that were planned according to the Aztec calendar. One type of calendar was called the Tonapahali, which means count of days. The calendar told how the time was divided among the gods. There are 260 days on the calendar. There are 20 13-day or vientenas periods or tracenas. The small wheel has numbers 1 through 13 on it, and the bigger wheel has 20 symbols on it. The number 1 is combined with the first symbol, which means it's the first day. When the wheel moves to the number 2 is combined with the second symbol, which is called a glyph. After 14 days, which is a week, the small wheel goes back to 1 and the big wheel shows the 14th symbol. After 260 days, the wheel goes back to the beginning. The people were sacrificed by the priest, taking them to the top of the temple, and the priest cut up from their stomach to their throat, pushed down the stairs, and dismembered their body parts. But some people chose to sacrifice themselves. There are about 1,000 people sacrificed each year. Now we're going live to a sacrifice.